Our next speaker, Professor Saghir Ahmad Ansari, who is associated with Department of Agricultural Economics and Business Management, Faculty of Agricultural Sciences, AMU. Encapsulating Sir's achievements and the credentials in few words is really a difficult task, and which obviously go beyond my capacities, but I'll try my best. So, right from selection in UPSC Civil Services examination in 1989 to being selected as Professor of Economics under Capacity Building Program of UNDP, he has an incredible teaching and administrative experience of more than 25 years. His research focuses on financial reforms, agricultural production, agricultural credit, and industrial development, to name a few among the list. So thank you, sir, for joining us, and uh, I'm happy, and I ensure all of you that it will be a really learning experience for all of us. Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Tosif, for giving such a wonderful introduction. Uh, Mr. Andrew Davis, Mr. Tejas Sidalingaya, Dr. Sukhit Singh, Dr. Juhi Gupta. I don't see Director Women Studies around, but she is the main host today's webinar. And dear participants, I first congratulate Dr. Juhi Gupta and his team for organizing this webinar on a very relevant top theme, as well as on very, in fact, important day. Today is the World Food Day. As we all of us know, that World Food Day was in fact, idea was given by the former Hungarian Minister for Agriculture and Food, Dr. Paul Romney, in November 1979, and since then we have been it is being observed. World Food Day basically is now used as a tool to create awareness about hunger, malnutrition, sustainability, as well as, of course, increasing food production, etc. I was just looking at the current year's theme. The current year's theme for World Food Day is Right to Food for a Better Life and a Better Future. This is, I believe, that one of the most relevant theme. Especially nowadays, what we are witnessing, that there are challenges for future in the area of food security. These challenges arise because of climate change, sharp increasing population, especially in the lowest income countries of Africa and Asia, South Asia. Then economic ups and downs, because economic downturns also affect the food security. Not food security, of course, has two aspects: food availability and then access to food. Food availability can be easily managed because those countries which are facing deficiency, for example, India has faced deficiency of food grains production domestically during the entire decade of 50s and 60s. But India succeeded through green revolution by achieving the food self-sufficiency, and now India has more than sufficient buffer stocks of food grains to maintain the our food security. Real challenge lies on the front of the access to the food, because over the years we find that a contradictory situation has emerged world over, that there is surplus food. Along with that, a significant proportion of population suffers from poverty, malnutrition, undernourishment, etc. So this is something which needs to be focused upon. The if you look at some facts, figures about global hunger. So I was looking at Food and Agriculture Organization report 2004. It has shown that there was a sharp increase in the uh, global hunger during the COVID period. That was expected of because it was a epidemic situation, and everything was disturbed. But unfortunately, what we are looking at, that our future seems to be more challenging than ever. United Nations had set up the Sustainable Development Goals 2, that is of zero hunger, but we are nowhere near to that. Still, out of 11 people in the world, one out of every 5 in Africa, they are either they get one-time food, or even sometimes even not a day. So situation has definitely improved in the South American countries over the years, but situation is still challenging in Africa as well, African countries, most of the African countries, and in South Asian countries. Malnourishment and undernourishment, it is also creating a lot of problems. If we look at the data, then over the years, there have been increase. Stunting and you see that stunting and wasting both have gone up in many countries, especially in the low income countries. In fact, the data for 2023 shows that the food security and malnutrition have plateaued for 3 years before 2023, between 713 million to 757 million. And malnourished and undernourished around 152 million. And unfortunately, in 2023, 152 million figure of malnourishment is higher than what was in 2019. That is the more challenging job or task before us, policymakers world over. In fact, whatever in the 2023 malnourishment and undernourishment is, it was what was in 2008 and 9. That means after 2008 and 9, we did improve, but after that, we again returned back to the 2008 and 9 level. In an estimated 28.9% of the global population, or 2.3 billion people, were moderately or severely food insecure. Not a, it's a very, in fact, not very unfortunate. Global Hunger Index shows that Since 2016, the problem of hunger, malnourishment, and undernourishment in the developing countries as a whole is either stagnated or deteriorated. That doesn't mean there are some individual countries which have done better. India is making very sincere effort towards overcoming these problems under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, under which 80 crores people are provided, the 800 million people are provided free ration for which is not an easy task, but government is, and it is government has allowed to this to continue up to 2029. This is only one aspect. Now, nutritious food, this was food, nutritious food, which includes the desired, what is known as balanced diet, that we are not able to even think of at this stage. Though efforts are being made in that direction. FAO report shows that more than one-third people in the world could not afford a healthy diet in 2022. There are so many other data which, if I go on reading, it will be. So let us come to and you see that another problem is in recent years has been that of obesity. It is increasing very fast. Of course, food habits and living styles, they are also responsible for this. Now, question is why food insecurity and malnutrition are worsening. They are worsening for a number of reasons. Persisting food price inflation. Food price inflation fluctuates so sharply that even with a somewhat satisfactory earnings, people sometimes are unable to fulfill their basic requirements. Then in especially in African countries, conflicts are very common. Conflicts, they also affect this food security and lead to malnutrition. You can see the example of Middle East at the moment. The kind of malnutrition and food insecurity the people in the Gaza are facing. That is one example of how the conflict affects this particular issue. Climate change, that is the most important challenge before the mankind. Earlier, we were talking of the climate change, but some were not taking it seriously. But now the climate change has become a reality. Global warming has already started showing its impact. Pattern of rainfall, at least in India, we all have noticed that it has completely undergone a change. And in fact, world over also, because those desert areas, they are experiencing heavy rainfall. Even flood is taking place in Dubai, in our Rajasthan, and so on. So climate change is one of another. In fact, studies have shown that climate change itself is likely to affect the food availability adversely. It is likely to affect the production as well as productivity both. And therefore, we have to take the challenge of climate change very seriously. Economic downturns I have already talked about. Healthy diets, they are beyond the means of the common man, especially the poorest section. So thinking of providing healthy diets requires a lot of effort. Of course, some efforts we have seen by the Mr. Tejas through his Akshay Patra Foundation. Such types of foundation must come up, and we must give them all types of support. One thing should be very clear, that everything cannot be done by the government. In developing countries and in low-income countries, what is expected of that? We expect every time the government should do this, the government should do that. This is not possible for any government in any country to do. It has to be a cooperative effort by the society, by the well-off section, and of course supported by the government through appropriate policy measures and programs. Over the last few decades, a one aspect which, in my view, is also responsible for food insecurity is rise in income inequalities. There has been sharp increase in income inequalities over the years, especially since decade of 70s, we have noticing it. Though, if we go through the book written by Thomas Piketty, Capital in the 21st Century, he has covered a period of around 200 years world over, and have shown how the income inequalities have gone up. Similarly, Joseph Stiglitz in United States have also shown how economic inequalities have gone up. And this phenomenon in India, we have noticed especially after economic reforms. From 1991 onwards, there has been sharp increase in income inequality. Of course, when an economy moves from a controlled or socialism towards the capitalism, such types of inequalities are natural and normal. But now we have to get this income inequality somehow controlled by providing better income earning opportunities to the poorest section of the population. Here we are failing. China has done very well in this regard. It has done very well in providing basic income, at least to the lowest section of its population, and therefore there this problem is not so severe. But China is a autocratic nation, and in a democratic country we cannot expect, and we cannot adopt those policy measures. So we have to focus on how to reduce economic inequality. So all these are the major factors. I was just going through a report of Food and Agricultural Organization. Sorry, I think WHO. WHO has pointed out that the worst impact of malnutrition and undernourishment has been on women and children world over in general, and in African countries and South Asian countries in particular. Over 1 billion adolescent girls and women suffer from malnutrition at present. Problem is that once if women is malnourished, it is passed on to the mother, from mother to the baby. Then baby suffers from certain irreversible impacts on their brain development as well as entire future. That means the focus of the policies will have to be on how to improve and remove the malnutrition and undernourishment among women, especially the lactating women. According to WHO 2023 report, 42% globally cannot hold healthy diet, and 49 million children under 5 years of age are stunted. Generally people all people below poverty line in general, but women and children in particular are most vulnerable. Another problem is there are certain socioeconomic factors also which deprive women of their due place. One major social factor is the early marriages, especially not only in India, since I have been in Africa, so I have seen in African nations also. So this early marriages, they create a cycle of malnutrition. In fact, girls are not ready for bearing a child, and then they had to, because of early marriages, and then of course consequences are to be borne by the subsequent generation. Now, mothers must be given, all the women must be given information and nutritious food. Fortunately, in India, under the Food Security Act, Government of India is doing very good work of providing nutritious food and even financial support to lactating women and even children up to the age of 2 years. What I emphasize that there are certain things which needs to be done. First, to ensure that mothers and children thrive, first what we should do, nutrition education be given to, especially to the women, because most of the women don't know what is going to be the negative impact of not getting the nutritious food. Or we observe sometimes that even though nutritious food is available, women say, okay, let the son will come, he should take, and why should I? They normally eat in the end. If it is something is left out, they take otherwise. Because they are not fully aware of the requirements, importance of a nutritious food. Improving access to fresh foods and vegetables, of course, not an easy task, but it free postnatal care and checkups, they are essential. Fortunately, in India, we are doing good work on this. In fact, prenatal and postnatal, both Government of India and state governments together, they are taking steps. In fact, our immunization program, they are one of the biggest in the world and very successful. Since diets most likely are not likely to be balanced, Therefore, it is essential that diets must be supplemented with vitamins and minerals for the women, such as folic acid, iron, calcium, and vitamin D. Of course, awareness for and increasing the breastfeeding, that is important. And over the years, in fact, breastfeeding is improving world over as well as in India also. Community support and empowerment, that is essential. We have already seen very good example by Akshay Patra Foundation, how the community support have helped the school students to uh, some extent reduce their malnourishment. Addressing socioeconomic factors like poverty, food insecurity, lack of access to health care and education, that is, of course, a medium to long term strategy is required on the part of the governments in different countries to ensure this. So these are certain measures. Coming to the Indian conditions, of course, from time to time, I have already referred to about. In India, food security is still an issue, not because of availability. In the 50s and 60s, we have faced the food shortage. So there was problem of availability of food grains. But with Green Revolution, we have been successful in achieving the food self-sufficiency and maintaining sufficient, in fact, more than sufficient stocks of food grains. But now the problem is on the front of access. Though government has been taking measures in the through different types of income enhancing programs in the rural areas, through wage employment programs as well as self-employment programs and even social security programs. I have already referred to the latest program being run by the present government, that is Pradhan Mantri Garib Ann Kalyan Yojana. Still, in India, problem of malnourishment and undernourishment is extremely serious. And poverty, if we look at what at a criteria of 1.9 US dollar, so still around 1/5 of our population is around below poverty line. It's somewhat in my feeling is that if somehow we can reduce inequality over a certain period of time, of course it cannot take immediately. It will take at least 1 or 2 decades. But appropriate policy reducing income inequality can, to a large extent, help the poorest and marginalized section. And this can be done through income enhancing activities. Unfortunately, even in our country, we have not been able to provide a sustainable income enhancing activity. Ad hoc measures are there. Manrega is there, and earlier there were a number of rural development programs. So that we will have to take up the seriously. What is required to overcome the problem of food security world over in general and in developing countries in particular? First thing is that in those countries where there is shortage of food, naturally food will have to be made available by the donor nations as well as by enabling by different world organization, especially under the aegis of United Nations, it will be much better. But in my view, again, I will say that access as aspect needs to be more focused upon. And for that, we will have to, in every country, how the poorest sections population income can be enhanced. In India, we can do follow the policy of dispersal of industries in the rural areas through setting up of small scale and ancillary industries. Even the cottage industries, in fact, the related activities like dairy farming, etc., they can help a lot. What is needed is that it must be done in an organized way, like Amul is being managed. And there are other cooperative organizations, cooperative societies. In recent years, cooperative societies, some of the cooperative societies have made a turnaround in their areas. Lastly, what I would like to say that real effort will have to be made by the people themselves. Otherwise, expecting government, everyone to do this, that we can talk of. Governments may take efforts, but unless the real effort is made by the people in general, and especially those who are affected by this, it will be very, very difficult to solve the problem of food insecurity, malnutrition, undernourishment. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity. Of course, I shall welcome the questions and clarifications if any needed.